On this week's episode of Kickin' It Wit Killa, we talk to actor, comedian Wali Collins. He talks about how he prepares to jump on stage and gives new comedians advice. So pull up your seat, spark that brain, and let's kick it.
We kicking it, kicking it, kicking it. We ain't taking no L's, L's. I don't care how they feel. We kicking it, kicking it.
Wally, what's going on, family?
I'm doing well, my man. I'm doing well.
It's definitely been a long time since we even saw each other, right? Like for people that don't know, we actually both come from Springfield, Mass. Plenty of times, my older sister, myself, we were at with Wally, we're at your house, and they would do different things like comedy, or not even necessarily comedy, but like talent shows. I remember having talent shows up in your house where everybody's doing a couple different things, man. So like we definitely go way back, man. I definitely appreciate you being on the show today, man. So what we're gonna do real quick is we're gonna jump into this thing that we call the quick kick. All right. So I'm gonna ask you a couple questions. I'm gonna give you two options, and all you have to do is choose one. So whatever comes to your mind, you just choose one. All right.
Okay.
So I'm gonna start off like this: Dave Chappelle or Eddie Murphy.
I'm based on what criteria though?
Let's stick with just stand up because they both have done big things, right? They've both done like they've done stand up, they've done movies, shows, right? So they've done everything, and so I want to say let's just base it just off of stand up. Like if you had to pick one, and they're both great. If you had to pick one, who would you pick?
See, it's really hard to say, especially in the business that I'm in. Well, first of all, Dave Chappelle is a very, very good friend of mine. And I know Eddie. I know Eddie, not as well as Dave, but I know Eddie. Um, but it's like it's asking your favorite dinner, your favorite meal, or your favorite meal. Like what's your favorite? If you say your favorite meal, dinner or breakfast, it's kind of like on what criteria? You know what I mean? Um, and that's why I guess that's why I'm asking because they're both great in their own rights. Dave, of course, Dave's an incredible stand-up comedian. However, Eddie was the first comedian that did a major arena, a major theater. So it's hard for me to say A or B, because if I say A, I feel like I'm leaving out the accomplishments of B, and if I say B, vice versa. It's like so it's equal. That's an equal answer.
We'll just we'll pass on that one. We'll call it pass. I'm calling it pass. We'll call it pass. All right.
Well, I mean, I can say both.
Okay. All right. We'll say both.
Okay.
They both definitely have huge accomplishments, right? So I knew
Right.
that one wasn't a softball. I could have threw a softball at you, but I knew that one was like a ooh, that's a tough one right there. You know what I'm saying? So
Exactly.
so we'll pass on that one. So here we
Right.
go. Next thing. A heckler that you finally won over, or a silent audience that finally laughs.
Probably the heckler. The
The
heckler.
heckler?
Yeah.
Okay. And in the back of my mind, I was thinking the heckler myself, right? Because, you know, if you could finally win them over, it probably makes the show even more funnier, right?
Yeah. It makes me look like the hero too.
Exactly. Exactly. So, okay. Next one.
Yep.
Big TV set, right?
Yeah.
Or a packed comedy club.
All right. Now here's the interesting thing. For the artist, it would be a comedy club, but for the marketer and making money would be the TV set. So if you want to do comedy clubs, or when you want to be successful, if you do a big TV set, more people saw you, and so now you get booked in different places. So monetarily, you're making money. But there have been times when I've done shows, maybe in front of 100, 200 people, and it was amazing. um, I still think about it, but that's something that's internal. And being the artist, I'm like, oh man, that's a win. So once again, that's a tough one to answer, because you got the artist and then you got the marketer, and and it's a really tough call. You're probably gonna get into this later, but it's a really tough call for comedians nowadays, because back in the day we were all about the craft, but now comedians now, it's all about being seen, social media.
Do you feel I don't know, do you feel like um before you kind of have to get those punchlines in faster now comparison is before we can have a nice build up? Like how do you think it's changed since social media has come like compared to years ago?
The comics now, their style is not necessarily set up punchline. Their style now is a thought, and it's almost like a stream of consciousness, and it's like, okay, that's I was just thinking about that. Old school, like 80s, 90s, 70s, back, then it was a setup and punchline. So I'm from the academic of old school, where there's a setup and punchline. But if you watch, these new comics now, um, especially on social media, you can see that, and especially on stage. Well, a lot of them, they do the audience stuff. They talk to the audience. But if you watch any of them doing stand up now, it's I was thinking about the weather and how it rains and then sometimes it stops, and then you try to time it. Can I run through the drops? And then you go on to the next joke. And the audience is kind of, they're kind of with it. They're like, oh, like, I'm not, I don't know. So, um, yeah. So it's a different type. It's like music. Like even when I think of hip hop or R&B, whatever, like basically hip hop. Um, how if you listen to like an old school song with this, they were singers, Luther and Johnny Gill, and Whitney Houston, that actually sang. But now with music now, it's the music and it's almost like a chant. You're listening to the hook. It's not, you're not hearing that artistry of that kind of thing. It's almost like a chant. You know the hook and you just sing the hook.
It's definitely more of like the hook, right? More of the chant, something that you can kind of like really simple hooks too, in fact, right? Something that gets everybody to be able to repeat it. And we keep saying like, just jumping on music, right? We keep saying that nowadays is the microwave era, right? Where let's go way back in the music and think about Sugar Hill Gang, right?
Hmm.
They had a song that was 15 minutes long, dude. 15
Right.
minutes long, right?
Right.
Nowadays, you'll be lucky if you can get it. You just pretty much get a hook, a verse, and a hook almost, and like you're almost done. Like it's a 2 minute song and call it a day. So yeah, I definitely understand you with that. Whereas they just try to hit you. I mean, I guess the same thing with comedian, right? In a sense, in music terms, they just try to hit you with the hook, something that you kind of remember real quick, and not necessarily like a full long build up with everything. So I kind of feel you on that. I kind of feel you on that. So I know that you've accomplished a lot, right? You've done
That's relative.
move well, yeah, but like you've done, Coyote Ugly, you've been on the Chappelle show, late night shows, Comedy Central, right?
Right.
Um, what would you say would be the biggest milestone thus far in your career?
Well, I had a milestone yesterday, I guess, something that will be in my memory. So I produced a show called Jokes and Jazz,
Uh-huh.
and I basically hire the musicians, I hire the comedians, because I both those worlds. I love both those worlds, and I pitched it to Lincoln Center in New York City, and I don't know if your listeners are familiar with Lincoln Center. It's one of the biggest performance centers in New York City, and they bought my show, and for 6 seasons we had Jokes and Jazz, hosted by Wali Collins, curated by Wali Collins, and it was great. Yeah, it was great. So um, last night we did the show at the Guggenheim Museum, and for those who don't know about the Guggenheim is probably one or the like best known or highest museums or facilities in New York City, a landmark in New York City. So I feel that's an accomplishment for me, with something that was just in my brain, and it came to be. Actually saw comedians and musicians, that I picked, that I curated, and put in front of an audience, and got paid for it. So, that's an accomplishment. But you know, I look back in my life, and there are peaks, of course, valleys, but those peaks, I'm like, yeah, I did that. I did that. Like I said, Lincoln
Uh-huh.
Center, Comedy Central. I was the first black host on Comedy Central, so I have that, and no one can take that away from me, and I'm proud of that. I do corporate shows, an award-winning, corporate comedian. So if I really, go back and think, yeah, there's like little accomplishments that I can, pick my head up and say, yeah, I did that. And so, like I said, yesterday was when I had my show called Jokes and Jazz, and we presented and performed it at the Guggenheim Museum.
Right now, you're doing a lot of setting up shows. Are you still doing as much stand up on your own? Were you hosting the show that you put on yesterday?
No, no. That's the only thing that I host, the Jokes and Jazz show. I'm doing a lot of cruise ships now, believe it or not, and yeah, and I'm basically just doing stand up on the cruise ships.
Okay.
But it's one of those things, for me, and I guess for anyone who's listening, whatever interests you, go for it and see how far you can take it, because we're all not one thing. No matter how much you think or we see someone who's good at one thing, I promise you, they have something else that interests them, for a balance, or to kind of take them away from that one thing that we know that that they're famous for. I mean, and go to any celebrity or anyone who's famous for what that one thing is, and I guarantee you, they have a counter that keeps them centered. Probably it's cooking or whatever, whatever it may be. But yeah, I promise you, there's something there.
Doing the cruises, doing the years of stand up comedy that you have done. What is your process in preparing for that stand up comedy that performance that you're about to put on?
Well, the process is, I guess, is years of material. I have a book. I have some stuff in my phone. A lot of material that I've written and whatever in my phone, so I have access to it immediately. And depending on the length of the set, the audience, um, I'll pick out, this joke will work, this joke will work, this joke will work, that kind of thing. Pretty simple. It's like I go to a pantry, and if I want to put it in a analogy or like a metaphor kind of thing, is like, you're a chef, and you want to prepare this incredible meal for these people who are hungry. um you find out what they're into, what their flavors are. And same thing with comedy or stand up. You find out, um what's the venue, who's going to be there, young, old. Do they like more sweet stuff, they like more spicy, sour? Yeah, and you pick those things out, and boom, you present them.
Just thinking about this because it just popped in my head, right? So, right now, before I used to DJ a lot of clubs. So typically, when you DJ clubs, you kind of automatically know, all right, this is what we're doing. This is a hip hop club, so this is what we're playing. This is a
Right.
top 40 club, so this is what we're playing, right? So
Right.
I've recently kind of just focused on doing a lot of weddings and corporate events, right? So
Okay.
I might prepare for something and then I get there and read the crowd and realize, okay, well, guess what? I have to go this direction instead.
Mm-hmm.
With stand up comedy, do you feel like it's almost the same way? Like you prepare your set, you feel like, okay, this is what I'm expecting. This is the type of crowd I'm expecting that's going to show up to see this. And then you get there, or you might see a performance before you and be like, okay, you know what? That's probably not going to work. I might need to go a different direction. Is that something that probably happens for you? How do you handle that situation?
Well, you do, you have like a set in mind, and then what happened yesterday, actually, you actually do edit. You edit while you're on stage, while in your brain.
you kind of put your brain on autopilot, and you're probably talking 2 jokes ahead of what you're editing.
Right.
You know, it's a skill that you have to develop, but, if I'm talking about family
Uh-huh.
and, I say I'm gonna do this joke about dad, I'll do this joke about, um, family life, and then I'll segue into being married. So I'm like, okay, so I'm talking about, so yeah, having a father and being a dad and blah, 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 back in my brain. I'm like, all right, so I'm going to segue and talk about being married. So then I'll talk about another joke about, my mother and father. And then I go, but you know what, marriage is, and I'll segue it to go to the bit. So I say, yeah, but marriage is tough. I'm married, and boom, I go into the marriage stuff. So a lot of comics do it that way. Yeah, they just edit in their brain.
I was watching something that another interview that you were in, and you were talking about how comedians essentially um try to prepare that closer joke, right? That big joke as their closer, right? And
Yeah,
you stated essentially that they should almost treat every joke like it's the closer, right? Every joke that they're writing as the closer.
right.
Um, can you dig a little further into that?
Oh yeah, sure. So, what is what would say a rookie mistake, I should say, that a lot of young comics do. They, if you're doing comedy for a little bit, you have that one joke that gets a big laugh, and you want to save it for your ending. That's my ending joke. That's my big closer. All right. So then I put before them, and I had students. I put before them. Okay. All right. So let's say the joke is. So then I crashed my car. Okay. That's the punchline, and then that's where the laughs come in after car. Okay.
Right.
So then I crashed my car. So many things can happen. If you're in a comedy club, a waitress can come by walking right in front of you. So like, so I crashed my car. Boom. That kills the punchline. Or someone could clear their throat. So I crashed a car. What? Kills it. Someone drops something. So many distractions can happen during that one sentence or those 3 words. So I suggest to everyone, get into the habit of writing every joke you do or every joke you write as your closing joke. Your problem should be the end result of writing that way. You should have the problem of saying, what joke should I close on? That should be your problem. Saying, you know what? Don't want to close on fruit. Don't want to close on that. Um, that's how you should write. Then what happens? Then you're not settling, and also your comedy was going to be quality. It's all going to be closer. It's all going to be up there. So it's a little more hard work, but it's going to pay off because you're in the habit of, right. Can I close with this joke? Can this is this good enough to be my final joke that everyone remembers me by? Am I good enough for that? Is this joke good enough for that?
So that makes complete sense. So what's your thought? And I'm not doing stand up. I'm not on stage every day, right? That's not what I do. But as the consumer, right? And if everybody did this, what I'm about to talk about, it'd probably be so diluted that it wouldn't matter anymore. But one thing that I seem to like is, I say the comedian comes on stage, he says this joke, right? Um, and he kind of ends up sandwiching that joke. And what I mean by, he starts off with a joke, he does his whatever, does whatever the punchline might be for that one, or whatever that gets everybody laughing, right? Whole bunch of other jokes, the whole thing, and then at the end, he almost hits you again with almost the same punchline or something else that related to that first joke that started off in the beginning. It is what's your thoughts on that? Do you feel like, and I'm trying to think if I've seen anybody recently do that, but I've noticed happening a couple times, and I thought it was pretty cool the way they did that. What is your thoughts on that?
In the business, that's called a callback.
Okay.
And yeah, it's pretty clever. It's a pretty clever tool to have. Yeah, actually, Dave does that in one of his.
Yes. Yep.
So, but yeah, it's a clever tool. Any comic can do it, but it's just a matter of the way you write it, the way you structure your set.
Right.
I like to, I do crowd work, and so I'll talk to the audience, and I'll remember something that was said, early on in the show, and then towards the end of the show, I'll call it back, and it's fun. The audience is like, oh wow, we forgot about that, and you're like, oh, he remembered, that kind of thing. But yeah, but once again, that it takes time, it takes skill, but that's part of the game is just get up there on stage and just keep doing it, and you'll develop that talent.
I have I'm gonna get into this fan question for you, and the question that he has for you is, what comedian inspired you to get into comedy?
I thought it was interesting how anybody can just get up there and say words and people would laugh. I thought that was fascinating.
Right.
But the person that I gravitated to or levitated to that took me up like, wow, I want to do this. Is a guy named Franklin Ajay.
Okay.
A lot of people don't know about him. He's from the '70s. He was around with Pryor. He was around with Cosby. His delivery was so laid back, and he was just so smart. And I remember, this is before I got into comedy. I just enjoyed him, and he was conversational the way he did his stand up, and yeah, and it was like this guy I could hang out with, and I was like, I want to do it like that.
Right.
So he would, he kind of got me into it. So then I started doing stand up, and he's in the back of my mind. I'm like, man, I want to be like Franklin,
Uh-huh.
and like, Jerry Seinfeld, and of course Cosby. I like I got into the cleaner comics.
Right.
So yeah, so I was listening to them. So I moved to L.A. Doing the actor thing, and I'm driving my car, and I see this young lady. It's pouring raining. I mean, a deluge of just rain. And I'm
Right.
driving, like, wipers doing this, and I'm driving, and I see this young lady. It was at the bus stop, but it wasn't like a canopy. It was just a pole with the bus stop holding her child in the rain
Right.
and like just covered. I'm like, oh my God. So I U-turned and I pulled around. I said, listen, I know you don't know me, but I could not leave. And this is the rain. I'm saying, I know you don't know me, but I cannot pass this you with your child in the pouring rain. Please, please let me bring you home or wherever you have to go. So of course she kind of like, whoa. So she got into the car, and I said, listen, I'm not what you think. I'm bringing you home, and that's it. So making small talk, and she asked me, why you're here. I said, well, I'm an actor, and I'm auditioning and things like that, and I do stand up comedy. And she goes, oh man, my godfather is a stand up comedian. Who's your godfather? Franklin Ajay.
Wow.
Right. So I'm like, wow, I'm taking Franklin. So I said, you have no idea. This is kismet, crazy, whatever. He is the reason why I got into stand up comedy. And I guess you heard a bazillion times because she was like, oh, okay, okay. So I bring her home, and never heard from her again. And I felt good. I brought the young lady home with her child,
Right. Right.
and I met Franklin Ajay's goddaughter, the guy that got me into stand up comedy. All right. So about now this was back in 90, yeah, in the 90s, like 99, 98, 99, right? 2000, what, 2012, 2013. So
Uh-huh.
there's a comedy festival that they have in New York City, and they highlight a particular comic who's been in the game. And this year was Franklin Ajay. Of course, I'm going anywhere Franklin Ajay is to watch him work.
Right.
Yeah, and so I'm watching diligently, and So, I was doing a show where he was on basically, and so I'm done. And he comes over to me and he goes, and you're funny. And he repeats one of my jokes.
Nice.
Right.
Nice.
So right.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh man, the dude that I emulated to be listened to me and was able to, so I'm like, all right, that's it. That's all. I'm done. All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now he's here for like 3 days in New York for 3 days. And so we get a chance, the comics get a chance to have like a powwow with him. We're talking. So we somehow, some way, I'm able to talk to him one on one. I said, I gotta tell you a story. And he goes, "What's up?" So I told him the story about his goddaughter, and I gave her a ride home. He goes, "Oh wow, that's really nice of you." So I went to the comedy club. He goes at the next day. He goes, "Oh, I was looking for her." He goes, "I called her. She remembers you." Dude,
Nice.
and I'm like, regular guy knows me as a comic, but I
Right.
got a ride home, and he remembers me for that reason. I'm in. That was it. And I told my wife, and she's like, and I remind her all the time, like, hey, I'm the guy that brought Franklin Jai's goddaughter home. Like, yes, I know. So that's one of my favorite stories. That a guy that basically got me into the business. I was able to meet him on a different level, but then relate to him on a whole nother level. I should be higher, a whole nother. So so yeah, that's my inspiration story. There you go.
Talk about being in the right place at the right time, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
perfect.
or the wrong
That's
place
perfect.
in her case.
Yeah. So so you have a book out
Yeah,
called You Never Know.
right. Yes,
Um
this is it right here.
there
This
you
is it.
go.
You never know.
So you never know. I like the way it's spelled too. You never know.
Right.
So it's almost spelled the same way like, some people might spell a kid's name, but um
Well, hold on. That's a cultural thing, but that's a whole different.
so but you never know. So
You know,
how did you come up with how did you come up with that title to the book?
my mother always gave me advice. You never know. Those 3 words. And when I was, I don't know if you know that I was an architect, and I was just designing buildings, and I really wanted to get into the acting world. And she said to me, "You never know. You got to try it. You never know." I'm a musician, and I did that because you never know. I got into comedy because you never know. Got into acting because you never know. Wrote a book because you never know.
Right.
And I realized that that was my mantra for everything I did in my life. So I just shortened it to one word. You never know, and
Right.
that's what the door is. That's opportunity. That's inspiration, possibilities, and great things came from it because you never know. Even when I play poker, going all in, you never know.
You never know.
You never know. Um, but yeah, it was inspiration from my mother that those 3 words, you never know. And I got support from my parents, and that helped.
Right.
But I would go into new ventures, anything, because you never know.
With somebody that's reading that book, what would you say? What is the biggest takeaway that you want somebody to take after reading this book?
It's not about the result. It's not about if you succeed or fail. It's the fact that you try. I do talks with the book about the book and the whole concept of you never know. And I make this analogy is when you go on a trip or any kind of journey, you get into your car, it's far away. You get into your car, you drive to the airport, you get into the airplane, you fly to wherever you got to get to, you land, get to the hotel, get to probably the meetings the next day. So you sleep in the hotel, you showered, eat, whatever, get into a taxi, you drive to the destination, you get there, you greet the person, depending how well you know them, shake their hand or hug them. What is the first thing that they ask you? How was your trip? They don't ask you, you know, let's talk or whatever. They want to know the journey, how how it went. Anything that anything that you do in your life, and someone's interested in what you do or how you did. They're going to ask you how you did it. Someone who loses weight, they're going to ask you. They see that you're thinner, but they're not going to move up. They're going to ask you, how did it happen? What was in the journey? What was in the process? You're learning a new skill. And someone sees that you started from here and went from there to there, they're going to ask you, what did you do to get there? It's all about the journey because you never know. So it's always a thing of the try. It's always, I got to try because you never know. And even if you do succeed or fail, that doesn't matter. You're going to talk about what you did to get there. If you failed or succeed, that doesn't matter. You're going to talk about what you had to go through. Can you believe I did all this and that didn't happen? You're going to talk about that.
Right.
So it's going to be a story no matter what you do.
Definitely go out and get that book. What can we expect from you? What's coming up? What we have going on?
Well, the book's on Amazon, please. Got it. The book hit number 8 in the happiness category, believe it or not.
Nice.
And that was a nice accomplishment. I really, and once again, that was a one of those things that I look back and nod my head and say, yeah, that's cool, an accomplishment, milestone, as you say. What's happening now? Um, well, I'm busy doing cruises, just traveling the world. And yeah, from time to time, my show called Jokes and Jazz. Yeah, I'm trying to shop it around all over the country. I'm
Uh huh.
getting local talent, local comedians, local musicians in that area,
Okay.
and yeah, that's what the show's about.
Jokes and jazz. We might have to try to get you to come out to Delaware with that. That sounds
Okay,
like something that would be really good. We'll
yeah,
have to talk afterwards about that. Definitely.
definitely.
So I want to thank you for coming on today's show, man. You definitely dropped some gems today. That you never know. The takeaway is huge, brother. It was definitely huge. I was like, man, this is the perfect way to end it, to keep everybody thinking and in an upbeat. You know what I'm saying? So um kudos to you. You've been doing this for years. Definitely
Yeah,
looking up to you. I remember when I was just a little knucklehead running Bay Street in Springfield, Mass. You know,
Am- Amherst Street.
yeah, right. So, definitely loving the success that you're having. I'm coming right behind you, brother. I'm right there with you. I'm coming with you. I'm coming with you. So,
Yeah, you
um,
know, I'll tell you something. The advice, that I give my daughter too is like, be the trailblazer, not the trail follower.
right,
Because if
right.
you're not blazing your own trail, you know what? You're helping someone else blaze theirs. So, uh,
Exactly.
blaze your trail.
Definitely. Well, like I said, I appreciate you coming on here. Of course, y'all were tuned in to Kicking It with Killa. And remember, doesn't matter what season you're in, whether it's the fallback, the get back, or the comeback, you're special. You have purpose. So get up there and get it. Peace.